Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be doing the part 2 of the CSEC English A May-June 2018 paper 1. But I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all those of you who have subscribed to the channel. And if you're visiting the channel for the first time, please just pause this video, go right ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn on your post notification bell so that you are alerted when new videos are posted. And please give this video a thumbs up by liking this video. Okay, let us get right into it. So we'll be covering the comprehensions and we'll be looking at a poem, advertisement, and a few comprehensions. So let us get right into it. Items 26 to 33. It says, the instructions. Read the following poem carefully and then answer items 26 to 33 on the basis of what is stated or implied. The title, An Even Shape. It says, our garden looks in through my window, crisscrossed by the white lattice. Coolers they call them, but they are also hiding places for small girls' play. Her garden stands neatly round her house, travels politely onto the veranda to sit in pots or hang leafily down from large earth-colored urns. She lives with Mamma, shepherding her with her full body, the hesitant ins and outs of Mamma's half-blind days, feeding her frail consciousness with edited Gleaner news and homemade chicken soup. In her home, borrowed children touched her, china birds with hands wiped clean from eating sticky cakes, each with a cherry on top, or pressed moist, breathless kisses round the corners of her smile. Sometimes she fills the space out with music, spreading out nostalgia through strings and flutes, old-fashioned love songs of blue moons and forever until. Shameful peeping Tom, I sit silent in my lattice, watching the even shape of her days, to catch just once a wider open door behind her steady eyes. But in her green-edged privacy, self-contained, she keeps the half-drawn shutters of her life open just so, and mocks my greed and restlessness with a calm refusal to be other than she seems. So let us answer the questions now. 26 says, the phrase, her garden looks, line 1 is an example of A, simile, B, metaphor, C, sarcasm, or D, personification. So we know our answer would be personification. Let's go on to 27. The garden seemed crisscrossed, line 2, because the A poet was looking at it through a lattice window. B, garden beds were laid out in squares. C, children were walking across the garden. Or D, the person looking at the garden was cross-eyed. So we know that it mentioned that she was looking at it through a lattice window. A would be our answer. Let's go on to 28. Which of the following phrases is meant to be taken literally? A, hiding places for small girls, line 4. B, her garden, or travels politely onto the veranda, lines 5 to 6. C, feeding her frail consciousness, line 14. Or D, watching the even shape of her or D's, line 28 to 29. So we know it would be A, hiding places for small girls. Let's move on to 29. Her garden stands neatly round her house. Line 5 tells us that A, there were several well-kept potted plants on stands around her house. B, several tall trees stood along the side of the house. C, the garden which surrounded the house was well kept. Or D, the woman cleaned the flower stands every day. So we know neatly around her house would suggest that the garden which surrounded the house was well kept. C. Let's go on to 30. It says the poet uses the words frail consciousness, line 14, to show that Mama A was unconscious most of the time, B was not understanding as well as she used to, C had fainted because of lack of food, or D was thin and weak and could hardly walk. Well, there is nothing in the passage that suggests that she was unconscious. So A is out. C is out. Now, when we look at our answer, consciousness have to do with our mind. So being frail, it meant that she was not understanding as well as she used to be. Let's go on to 31. Which of the following best describes a woman's extra thoughtfulness of her mother? A. She lives with Mama, shepherding her, or her full body, lines 10 to 11. B. Pressed, moist, breathless kisses, line 21. C. Feeding her with edited, linear news, lines 14 to 15. D. Spreading out nostalgia through strings and flutes, lines 24 to 25. We know that the answer for 31 would be C, feeding her with edited slash cleaner news. Let's go on to 32. The poet uses the phrase borrowed children, line 17, to show A, how much she loved the children, B, that she had no children of her own, C, that she did not want children, or D, why she made the children wash their dirty hands. Now, we know that C and D would be out totally because there's nowhere in the passage that suggests that she did not want children. So we know being borrowed children meant that she had no children of her own. Let's go on to 33. It says, which of the following were done by the children to show their love for the woman? 1. Wiping their hands before touching the china bird. 2. Eating all the sticky cakes she made them. 3. Kissing her on the side of her lips. Is it A, 1 and 2 only, B, 1 and 3 only, C, 2 and 3 only, or D, 1, 2 and 3? So we know it would be D, all of them. Let's go on to 34. Items 34 to 41, the instruction says, read the following extract carefully and then answer items 34 to 41 on the basis of what is stated or implied. The title, The View from the Terrace. It says, Marcus wheeled himself out to his accustomed place at the table on the terrace, and the sight struck him immediately. How could it not? It was an abomination, a desecration, a heresy, a sight unbelievable. There was a house on the hillside, his hill, the one which overlooked the village, and which his terrace faced. It was a small house, to be sure. He estimated it to be no more than 20 feet by 12, with one door and one window on the long side which faced him. From the distance, it was no more than a doll's house, or what a child might draw. A wooden hut, similar to those which sprung up daily in the squatter settlements which everywhere littered the hillsides, ringing the city, visible evidence of society out of control. But his hillside wasn't a squatter settlement, and no other house marred its view. His house sat on a slight rise above the village in the valley, and from there he had an uninterrupted view of the mountains on all sides. Far away there were houses, proper ones, that is, but none close enough to mar his vision. It had never occurred to him that the hillside he gazed at every day would ever be defaced with human habitation. It was so steep and inhospitable. Few trees grew on it except for the occasional clump of mangoes. It was mostly covered with grass, which burned every year in the dry months, and agaves, which from time to time flowered yellow. Halfway up the hill, and directly in front of his favorite seat on the terrace, was the only tree of any size, and this was a silk cotton tree, which would one day become a giant, but which was still small as cotton trees go. Year after year, he watched its progress as it shed its leaves in the winter months and turned a bright green in the spring. And now, immediately behind this tree, as if sheltering in its arms, Someone had built a house on his hill. It wasn't really his hill, but who else was there to claim it? Who else had gazed at it 365 mornings every year for the past 12 years? Let's answer our questions now. Question 34 says, which word best describes the homeowner's attitude towards the hillside near his house? A, angry, B, proud, C, pleased, D, possessive. We know angry would be totally out. We know B would be out. So we know our answer would be D, possessive, because he says his hill. 35 says, the word struck him line 2 suggests that to the homeowner, the sudden appearance of the quarters house A. Stirred disgust at the nature of the home. B. Awoke interest in how quickly it was built. C. Aroused shock at the unexpected neighbor. Or D. Stimulated pain because of the loss of privacy and control. We know it would be C. Aroused shock at the unexpected neighbor. He lived there all alone. 36 says, the phrase sat on line 9 tells us that the house is A. Set into the hillside, B. Comfortably situated, C. Precariously located, or D. Placed directly on the hill. We know it is B. Comfortably situated. 37 says, which of the following did the homeowner believe gave him the right to claim the hill? A. Its proximity to his home. B. It was not easily accessible. C. The length of time he lived there. D. No one had moved in for some time. So here we know that B and D would be out. So we're left with A and C. So it's proximity to his home or the length of time he lived there. So I am going to go with C, the length of time he lived there. 38 says, the word littered line 7 highlights the owner's belief that the squatter settlements were 1. Temporary, 2. A blemish, 3. Poorly built. Is it A. 2 only, B. 1 and 3 only, C. 2 and 3 only, or D. 1, 2 and 3? We know it would be C. 2 and 3 only. Let's go on to 39. 39. Here it says, which of the following best captures the owner's biggest fear? A. The silk cotton tree would become gigantic. B. Proper houses would be built on the hillside. C. The hillside would become a squatter's settlement. Or D. Littering would become a problem on the hillside. We know our answer would be C. The hillside would become a squatter's settlement. Let's go on to 40. The repetition of his hill, lines 3 and 20, by the narrator, A. displays the depth of his disgust, B. shows how persistent his shock was, C. presents the homeowner's stubbornness, or D. emphasizes the passion behind his attitude. We know it is emphasizing the passion behind his attitude. Let's go on to 41. It says, which words best sum up the homeowner's view of squatter settlement? A. Sprung up daily, line 7. B. Society out of control, line 8. C. Mardy's view, line 9. Or D. Houses, proper ones, line 11. We know it would be B. Society out of control. Let's go on to 42. Items 42 to 49. The instruction says, read the following extra carefully and then answer items 42 to 49 on the basis of what is stated or implied. The title, The Oceans. To the prejudiced eyes of land-bound humans, the oceans seem like one continuous mass, as homogeneous as outer space. To some extent they are, and some marine creatures treat the whole maritime world as their oyster. Some of the great whales, for instance, lounge from the surface to the depths as a matter of course, and divide their feeding and breeding between the poles and the tropics. Equally striking to the marine scientist, however, is the variousness of the oceans. Each sea embraces several, or indeed many distinct environments, each of which occupies a discrete zone. Some of these zones also vary markedly with time. Through the day, with the tides and therefore with the phases of the moon by season and sometimes in cycles of several years. And superimposed on all these variations in space and time are the more erratic influences of currents and of the influx of rivers. In short, patchiness in space and time is as much a feature of the oceans as it is of land. Indeed, patchiness is a great principle in ecology, though it is rarely singled out as such. Each oceanic zone has its characteristic creatures, sometimes a huge variety of different types, and sometimes only a few. But many creatures of all kinds spend part of their lives in one kind of environment and part in another. And because there are so many different ways of making a living in the oceans, so many permutations of habitats, there is a correspondingly huge variety of creatures, and many creatures take quite different forms and live in quite different ways at different stages of their lives. There are far fewer species in the oceans than on land, however, because there are no marine equivalents of the forest trees, and it is the trees that provide such a myriad of habitats for land-based creatures. Our question says 42. The writer's main purpose in the extract is to A. Show that the ocean is very diverse, B. Convince the reader to visit the ocean, C. Describe the beauty of the ocean to humans, or D. Discuss the different creatures that live in the ocean. We know it is A. To show that the ocean is very diverse. 43 says, the word prejudice, line 1, is nearest in meaning to. So we're looking for a synonym for the word prejudice. Is it A, racial, B, biased, C, negative, or D, unpleasant? We know prejudice means being biased. B. Let's go on to 44. The writer says that prejudiced eyes see the oceans as being as homogeneous as outer space, lines 1 to 2. This description suggests that the ocean seems to be empty and far away, B, the cause of prejudice, C, a rich and varied place, or D, one continuous stretch and water. We know it could not be A, empty and far away. We know B would be out, so we know our answer would be D, one continuous stretch of water. Let's go on to 45. The statement, some marine creatures treat the whole maritime world as their oyster, lines 2 to 3, suggests that the creatures A, live in oysters, B, feed on oysters, C, stay in one part of the ocean, or D, move freely throughout the oceans. We know it is D, move freely throughout the oceans. 46 says, according to the extract, patchiness, line 13, refers to A, variation, B, confusion, C, movement, or D, piecing together. We know it is a variation. Line A. Let's go on to 47. Which of the following best describes the type of writing in the extract? A, critical, B, narrative, C, informative, or D, argumentative. We know this extract is informative. C. 48 says, according to the extract, which of the following statements is false? A. There are more species on land than in the ocean. B. There are more species in the ocean than on land. C. Many ocean creatures divide their time in different parts of the ocean. Or D. Many sea creatures take different forms at different stages of their lives. We know we have just read in the latter part C and D, that is included. Now for we know the passage mentioned, it says here that in line 19 it says there are far fewer species in the oceans than on land. So fewer species in the oceans than on land. So B would be our answer. This is false. It says there are more species in the ocean than on land. That's not true. 49 says, The clause, there are so many different ways of making a living in the oceans, line 16 refers to A, tourists, B, fishermen, C, scientists, or D, marine creatures. We know it is D, marine creatures. Let's go on to 50. Items 50 to 54. The instruction says, read the following advertisement carefully and then answer items 50 to 54 on the basis of what is stated or implied. So this is about tours. It says, the tours we offer are truly unique and very much off the beaten track. We take you into the country to experience the historical, cultural, and breathtaking scenic highlights of the highland. Our rich heritage in farming over the centuries has produced grand plantation mansions surrounded by picturesque little copses with stately royal palms swaying majestically in the easterly trade winds. The neat sugarcane fields sweep down the rolling hills towards the wild east coast, where miles of untouched beaches are graced with the backdrop of rugged cliffs and the giant breakers of the Atlantic crashing ashore. At Island Outdoor Tours, the choice is yours. Whether you're the adventurous type or prefer a more laid back tour, just give us a call and let us advise you. So 50 says the advertisement was most likely taken from A. Newspaper, B. Geographic text, C. Tourism brochure, or D. Naturalist. We know it would be C. Tourism brochure because it is a tour inviting tourists to come and experience what the things that the country has to offer. 51 says, which of the following is nearest in meaning to off the beaten track line? 1. A. On unpaved trails. B. Into the wilderness. C. Through dense vegetation. Or D. Along roads not regularly traversed. Our answer would be D. 52 says, which of the following does the advertisement promise? Scenic beauty, sedate enjoyment, 3. Outdoor adventure. Is it A. 1 and 2 only, B. 1 and 3 only, C. 2 and 3 only, or D. 1, 2, and 3? We know it is all of them 1, 2, and 3. Let's go on to 53. The phrase the neat sugarcane fields sweep down the rolling hills, line 5, contains an example of A. Contrast, B. Repetition, C. Metaphor, D. Specific reference. We know it is a contrast. Let's go on to 54. This advertisement seeks to persuade the reader mainly through the use of A. Detail, B. Imagery, C. Suspense, or D. Exaggeration. We know it is providing detail. A. Let's go on to 55. Items 55 to 60. The instruction says, read the following advertisement carefully and then answer items 55 to 60 on the basis of what is stated or implied. Join our Caribbean Miles program. You can earn Caribbean Airline miles every flight. Plus, when you fly, drive, or shop, you will earn miles even faster. Our membership. Members who fly 20,000 miles on Caribbean Airlines within a calendar year are eligible for a silver membership. Flying 40,000 miles qualify members for a gold membership, while flying 80,000 miles qualify members for an executive gold membership. Silver tier membership. It says unique member credentials A. 3,000 miles bonus upon attainment of silver tier status, preferential check-in and priority boarding on all Caribbean Airlines flights, waiver of date change, penalty and redeposit fee on reward tickets. Gold tier membership. Unique member credentials A. 5,000 miles bonus upon attainment of gold tier status, preferential check-in and priority boarding on all Caribbean Airlines flights, waiver of date change, penalty and redeposit fee on reward tickets, expedited award delivery at no cost. So our destination within the Caribbean or between South America, and those South America refers to Caracas, Georgetown, and Paramaribo. One way upgrade 5,000 miles, one way economy class 7,500 miles, one way business class 12,000 miles. Between the Caribbean, South America, and North America, one way upgrade 10,000 miles, one way economy class 15,500 miles, one way business class 25,500 miles. Between Kingston and North America, one way economy class 16,250, one way business class 28,750 miles. Thank you for flying with Caribbean Airlines, and they list their website and their email address. 55 says, what does the airline promise if a person joins the miles program? A. Faster travel. B. Free shipping. C. Frequent shopping. D. Rewards for every flight. We know it is D. The very first sentence says rewards for every flight. 56 says, how many bonus miles does a silver tier member receive? A. 3,000. B. 5,000. C. 7,000. D. 8,000. It mentioned A. 3,000. 57. To which of the following destinations can a person fly using 25,500 airline miles? A. Asia. B. Africa. C. Europe. Or D. North America. We know it is D. North America. Let's go on to 58. According to the advertisement, what should a prospective member do if more detailed information is needed about the benefits of the program? A. Fly frequently. B. Visit the airline's webpage. C. Visit the airline's offices. Or D. Join the miles program. We know it is B. Visit the airline's webpage. 59 says, which technique does the advertisement use to appeal to travelers to join the miles program? A. Facts. B. Opinion. C. Persuasive language. D. Personal experience. We know it is A. Facts. Let's go to 60. The main purpose of the advertisement is to encourage persons to A. Enjoy air travel. B. Receive an executive gold card. C. Fly more often. Or D. Become members of the miles program. It is to C. Fly more often. So we have completed the entire CSEC English A, May, June 2018, paper 1. We've completed the 60 questions. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and give this video a thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.